What is that?
34.
34.
34.
Oh, we're going back. Okay.
There are three things that a person must say in his house Friday afternoon as it's getting close to night. Isartem, have you tithed the produce? If you want to eat the produce on Shabbos, you have to have tithe. Eravtem, did you make the eruv? And hidlikos aner, and go ahead and light the candles. Safek chashefa, safek ena chashecha, but once it's already past Shkias, it's now in sunset, in twilight, in Bein Hashmashos. So at that point, Ein ma'aser mesavadai. You can no longer tithe that which must be tithed. Vadai meaning is the absolute. So what must be tithed? Ve'ein makbilan es hakelim, and you can't take a vessel to the mikvah because that is completing the vessel. It's making it usable. So you can no longer light the candles once Bein Hashmashos has come. Aval ma'aser es hadmai, but you can tithe demai, which is a rabbinic obligation of tithing. And the Gemara is going to ask, wait, but some of the other things are also rabbinic, and you can't do them. Why some rabbinic things you can't do during Bein Hashmashos, and some things you can? And you can make an eruv u'ma'arvin, which we sell as a contradiction, because before we said you cannot make an eruv. The tomnin esachamin, and you're allowed to do hatmana. You're allowed to envelop something to keep it hot, esachamin, something that's hot. And we'll see more of the rule of hatmana, of hiding something, putting something away, and covering it to remain hot on Shabbos, when it's permissible to be done before Shabbos and when not, and when it's and what's not allowed even on Shabbos. So mananimi. The Gemara says, where do we know this thing that you should come Friday afternoon and make sure things are done? The Gemara says, because the pasuk says, "V'yadata kishalom ahalecha," and you shall know that there's peace in your home, that your home is complete. So you have to check and make sure things are done. Don't get frustrated later that they weren't done. Rather, in advance, make sure and check. And you will remember or remind your household. And this way you will not come to sin, meaning you won't get angry, you won't get upset that things aren't done, because you will have checked in advance. Even though the Mishnah says you must say this in the house, however, of course, the Mishnah means to say so in a calm, respectful, kind way, so that people will actually listen. Because if you say it in an unkind, demanding way, it's not going to go well. Amar Ravashi, I'm no Lishamieli, Rabbi Baravuna. Ravashi says, I didn't hear this teaching of Rabbi Baravuna. In other words, I didn't need Rabbi Baravuna to tell me this. I got this, out of logic. That if you're going to say something that you want people to hear, divrei chachamim menachas neshmaim, the Gemara says, that words of chachamim are heard in when they're done pleasantly. It doesn't go over well. People are not more inclined to listen when it's said in a harsh way. In any case, the Gemara says that we have haguf kasha. We have a contradiction in the statement itself. You said there are three things that must be said prior to sunset, prior to nightfall. But once it's already in a doubt, you can't do them. So which are the three things? One of them is iravtem. Did you make an eruv? So you have to say that before nightfall. In other words, once it's already bein hashmashos, you can't say it anymore. In other words, you can't make an eruv anymore. And yet you say, and yet you say that there is an eruv that can be made even in bein hashmashos. So that's a contradiction. So here we have a siman of all the statements that Rabbi Abba Abba said in the name of Rav. So we have a siman begufya zimra tzifra b'chavla b'demilsa. Amar Rabbi Rabbi Rashi Amar Rav. Look, Kasha. This is not a contradiction. Kan be'eruve techumin, kan be'eruve chatzeros. We'll go with Rashi here. Tosis has a different version in the name of Rabbeinu Tam. We'll go with Rashi. There are two concepts, multiple concepts of eruv. We know that there's an eruv, what we did before Yontif, eruv tavshilin. If you want to cook on Yontif into Shabbos, so you have to have started cooking before Shabbos, before Yontif. That's eruv tavshilin. There's an eruv techumin, which we talked about a while back, which is the concept of if I want to travel outside of my space, my halachic space, my town, my city, my camp, 2,000, beyond 2,000 amma, I have to make an eruv at the end of 2,000 amma, and then I can travel another 2,000 amma from there. That's eruve techumin. And then we have eruve chatzeros. If I want to carry in my courtyard, from my house to my courtyard and back, or from my courtyard to my neighbor's courtyard and back, or then I would have to make a conjoined meal in all the people that are in the chatzar. So we have a ruve chatzeros and a ruve techumin. So by a ruve techumin, which is even if we say there's a machlokes about it, whether that's the oraisa the rabbanan. We'll see. The Gemara has a machlokes of whether this concept of not being allowed to travel 2,000 or 12,000 amma, and then needing an eruv, making an eruv, whether this is a Torah a concept or a rabbinic concept. Therefore, even if you say that it's not the oraisa, but it is based upon the oraisa, and therefore the halacha is you may not do this in bein hashmashos. It has to be done before Shabbos. Whereas a ruve chatzeros, in making an eruv in your courtyard that you should be able to carry from one to the other, that is a rabbinic enactment entirely. Rashi calls it a chumra ba'alma, meaning that this is a rabbinic enactment beyond the biblical basis, and therefore, even in bein hashmashos, even if it's not sure yet that you're not sure whether it's Shabbos yet. And so it might be Shabbos already. Nevertheless, you're allowed to make an eruv chatzeros. That's the way Rashi learns. The Amar Rava or Rava says, Amar l'shnayim tseva arev aleinu. If somebody says, "Do me a favor and make an eruv for me," le'echad irev olav meba'odyam. And Rashi learns that this is talking about as well as eruv techumin. So I'm putting an eruv at the end of 2,000 amma. And I'm making the eruv at the end of 2,000 amma. And I did it before Shabbos. So somebody asked me to do it. I went ahead and I did it, and all's well. And one, I transgressed. I'm not supposed to make, as we just said, I'm not supposed to make an eruv in bein hashmashos, eruv techumin, like we just said. Nevertheless, I did. I went out to the 2,000 amma and I put down an eruv for another fellow. And by the time I get there, I realize that there's a raven that's eating up the first fellow's meal. So it's already bein hashmashos. It's already past sunset, but not yet fully nighttime. So it already might be Shabbos. Yet, halacha is the first eruv works and the second eruv works. The first eruv works because it was put in before bein hashmashos, and even though that's a raven ate it during the bein hashmashos time, but maybe it was already Shabbos. And so at the entrance of Shabbos, that fella had an eruv. And the second eruv also works because I put it down bein hashmashos. Maybe it's not yet Shabbos. And therefore the eruv, the second eruv that I work that I put down will work and suffice for the second, even though that it may be contradictory. Is it already Shabbos for this person or not? But since each one is in a state of doubt, and this is a d'Rabbanan, we allow each one of them to continue using the eruv as is. So that's what he says. Amr l'shnayim tseva arev aleinu bein hashmashos. Tseva arev aleinu. Two people said, "Go make an eruv for me." Le'echad eruv b'yom, and he went and he did one before Shabbos. Ule'echad eruv olav bein hashmashos, but the second one he only put in after it was already nighttime. After it was already twilight. And the first eruv that was made when it was still daytime, what got eaten. And the one that he did while it was already twilight, remained on at least till night. Now the Gemara says, and it was eaten at nighttime. That's not a relevant point, because once it's into Shabbos already, it's irrelevant to whether it was there or not. But the point is that we're talking about that it remained at least till nighttime. Shneim kana. So both of the eruvs work. Manavshach. Iben hashmash limamu basar likni kamalur likni. So the Gemara says, well, how can it work? Manavshach. What's your soul? Meaning, what are you thinking? If you think that in the twilight it's still day, well then the second one works, but the first one shouldn't work because the first one's eruv was eaten at that time. And if you tell me that twilight, that in between sunset and nighttime is actually nighttime already, so kama likni, so the first one actually validly works because it was a good eruv by the time it was eaten by the ravens. But basra likni, the second one should not work because you only put it down when it was already nighttime. So Gemara says actually bein hashmashis sefekahu, bein hashmashis is a state of doubt, and therefore sefeka d'Rabbanan l'kula, since the eruv is a rabbinic enactment, you can be lenient on either way, even though for each person it's contradictory to the other. But as long as that person himself is consistent with when Shabbos started, that's going to be fine. Amar Rava says, why is it that you cannot envelop something in on a hot food in something that does not add to the heat? That means dry shmatas. I'm going to take dry cloth, dry towel, and I'm going to wrap a pot of hot soup. Why can't I do that on Shabbos? Once it became dark. So he says the reason is the reason is because you may realize, oh, I want it to be really boiling before I insulate this, before I put this away to have later. And you may reheat it quickly because you realize it's not as hot as you want it. So therefore you can't wrap it on Shabbos lest you're going to come to reheat it. But before Shabbos, you can wrap it in something that is not a conductor of heat, is not going to add to the heat itself. It's just going to insulate it. So like dry cloth, dry towels, dry shmatas, and so on. However, if the towel was wet, so now the water is going to heat itself up, and that is going to add to the heat or act as a conductor of heat. Or I'm going to put it into something metal or something, or I'm going to put it into coals. Of course, those are things that you're not allowed to do even before Shabbos, as we'll see soon. Well, if that's the case, that we're afraid that you're going to you're going to heat it up again, well, then we have a problem. Then you shouldn't even be allowed to do it bein hashmashas. And in our Mishnah it says, you're allowed to put away something, and you're allowed to envelop something and wrap it on in twilight zone in bein hashmashas. Why are you allowed to do that? If we're afraid that you're going to heat up the food, then you're not allowed to heat up the food. No, usually right before Shabbos, everything's boiling and everything's fully hot, and the odd chance of that it's not hot enough, you're going to heat it, is really not such a big chashash. On Shabbos, you can't do it. Bein hashmashas, we're allowed to. And this is the concept of all the things that we say that you're allowed to do bein hashmashas, meaning anything that typically is okay. For the most part, it's not a concern. It's only a slight concern. That's where in the bein hashmashas time, where it may be Shabbos already, but it's not for sure Shabbos, the Chachamim were lenient on those rabbinic things. But something that is a serious concern that you may end up doing something, or it's rabbinic in that you're actually doing something functional, like taking a mikveh to the vessel, a vessel to the mikveh, where when you tovel it, you're actually completing the vessel. Now it's not a biblical completion because necessarily, because the vessel is usable. It's just there's a mitzvah obligation you still need to do. That would be a complete action, and that's not allowed bein hashmashas. V'amar Rava. Rava says further. Now we go to Lamed Aleph Lamed Beis, 34b. Mipnei ma amru. Why did the Chacham say in terms of davar mosif hevel? Why can't you use something that actually will conduct the heat, will add heat, that you're not allowed to wrap your food, your hot food in that, even prior to Shabbos, and leave it into Shabbos that way? Why maybe what you're going to use is you're going to use remetz, ash from a wood fire. Sheyesh bagachelas, and there may actually be a live coal in there. So what? No, because maybe you're going to realize your food's not hot enough, and you're going to fan that coal to increase the heat. So if it's something that doesn't conduct heat, there's no way to increase the heat. It's just going to maintain the heat as much as possible by insulating it. But if it's something that conducts heat itself, so now you have something that is actually adding to the heat of the pot, there we're concerned that you may use something that you can actually fan the flame, and then you're going to increase the heat on Shabbos. Turn our button. So now we get into this concept of what is this twilight zone? Where is Bein HaShmashos and not? So if you remember from Brachos, what we learned is that there's a machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi says Bein HaShmashos keherafine, it's at an instant. And Rabbi Yehuda said that no, it starts at a certain point, it ends at a certain point. And the Gemara had a discussion of Rabbi Yossi before, middle, or after Rabbi Yehuda. We'll see some of that later in the Gemara as well. But we now have this concept of when is this Bein HaShmashos? What is it? And is it day? Is it night? So Tana Rabbanan Bein HaShmashos Safik Yom, Safik Min Hayom, Safik Min Halayla, Safik Kula Min Hayom, Safik Kula Min Halayla. We don't know. Is it partly day, partly night? Is it completely day, or is it completely night? So it's somewhere, and one of these three options. It's either completely day, completely night, or it's day and night intertwined in some way. So Matilon has l'chamesh neyamim, and therefore we give you the stringencies of both days. And the Gemara later is going to talk about in what concept. So Eze Bein HaShmashos. What is Bein HaShmashos? Mishatishka chama, when the sun dips down beyond the horizon, and we'll see soon at what point does that count also. So Kozman Shepnei Mizrach Ma'adimin, as long as the east is still red. And the Gemara is going to explain that later. We can either mean that if you're looking at the east is going to be red, meaning the clouds on the east are reflecting the sun, and therefore they're a reddish purple. Or, as we'll see, that no, what it means is that the west is going to be red, the clouds, and it means that the glare that shines to the east is still shining on the west. Mishatishka chama, from when the sun drops beneath the horizon, calls Masha Pnei Mizrach Madimin, as long as the east, and we'll say it in a simple reading, as long as the east is still red. Hichsif atachna and hichsif elyon. If it got dark on the lowest level of the horizon, but not up in the center of the sky yet, Bein HaShmashos. That's still between the suns, meaning that's twilight. Hichsif elyon. Anybody on? Charles?
Yeah.
Sorry. We were just. I'll mute us.
You have a question? Oh, sorry. So, Bein HaShmashos. Hichsif elyon. Once the center of the sky, right above you, is now dark, there's no redness left from the glare of the sun. V'hishvel atachton, and it's as dark as the eastern horizon. Zeu laila, that is night. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, that's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. However, it's not based on that. It's based on from when the sun dips beneath the horizon, as long as it takes a person to travel half a mil. Rabbi Yossi Bein HaShmashos clarifying. Rabbi Yossi says it's actually a blink of an eye. That one day leaves, the next day comes in. And you cannot really attain what time that is, but as Tues points out, but he's not telling us clearly when that moment is, only that it is a moment. There is no transition point. It's a moment. Amar Mar. So the Brisa had said, Matilin we give him the strength or the chumrah of both days. In regards to what halacha do you have such a concept that it'll have the chumrah of both days? Related to what? Amar Rav Huna Berei Yeshua le'inyan tuma. It's in regards to tuma. So to introduce this idea, we're going to go back to the halachas of zav, which we learned a little bit about in brachas, and we've seen in nida. So here's halacha of zav. A male zav, as opposed to a zava, which is 3 days, a male zav can become tameh in either if he sees multiple different occurrences of zava, of ziva, or if it happens on multiple days, even if it's one long occurrence. So 2 days, 1 day is tameh just for a day. 2 days is tameh 7 days. 3 days he has to bring a korban. So in regards to tuma and in regards to korban, we're going to have this halacha. So not as we learned. Rosh Shnei Yomim Bein Hashmoshes. He saw 2 consecutive days in this twilight zone, in Bein Hashmoshes, between sunset and nightfall. So let's think about this. The first day, it could be, so let's say it was Sunday night going into Monday and Monday night going into Tuesday. Sunday night going into Monday, when he saw it in Bein Hashmoshes, it can either be Sunday or Monday, but it's one of those days. If it was Sunday and he doesn't see anything on Monday, so it's a 1 day tumah and we're done. However, if he sees on Sunday and Monday, or if this is already counted as Monday, so then he won't have an empty day in between. So he saw it on Sunday, going into Monday after sunset, before nightfall. Monday, the same thing. After sunset, before nightfall, in Bein Hashmoshes, he sees a re'iyah again. So now we have a 3-way suffix. Could it be Sunday that he saw it prior to nightfall? And so it's still Sunday. And then the Monday one he saw when it's already Tuesday. And so he had a full empty day between that he didn't see any ziva. And so it's Sunday, nothing on Monday, on Tuesday, and it's nothing. Each one is an independent single day. Or perhaps he saw on Sunday, but the second day, Monday night, where it's after sunset, counts for Monday and for Tuesday because it went long enough to also go into Tuesday. So it could be he saw a 3-day. Or it's possible that he saw Sunday nights counts for Monday, and Monday nights counts for Monday and or Tuesday. And either way, he has a 2-day, which means a 7-day tumah. So the Gemara explains, suffik l'tuma ula korban. It's a suffik in tumah. It's a doubt of whether he needs a 1-day tumah or a 7-day tumah. As we just explained, if there's a full empty day between, because Sunday's nights counts for Sunday day, and Monday nights counts for Tuesday already, so he has a full day in between. So maybe he's only tummy for the 1 day and that's it. Or perhaps, he saw 3 days consecutively because he saw Sundays counts for Sunday. Monday nights counts for Monday and for Tuesday because he saw the flow directly into Tuesday as well. So, Ra'yam echad bein hashmashas. However, if he only saw 1 day in bein hashmashas, meaning Sunday night, he saw it after sunset before nightfall. So now there's no doubt of seeing 3 days. That's for sure now. So he doesn't have to bring a korban. However, you still have a doubt at tumah because maybe it started before the next day came. So he started Sunday and it continued into Monday. So even though it's a single occurrence, but it may have happened on 2 different days and it'll count as consecutive days and he has a 7-day of tumah. So Gemara says, Hagufa kasha. I have a contradiction. Amr says, Ben hashmoshes mishatishka chama kol zman shepenei mizrach ma'adimin. You said at first, what is considered the twilight zone? What is it when the sun dips beneath the horizon as long as the horizon, the face of east, is still red? Which tells me, but once the horizon is dark even if in the center of the sky right above you is still red, but as long as the horizon is dark, the eastern horizon is dark, that's going to count as nightfall. But then you continue and you say that even if the eastern horizon is dark, as long as above you is not dark, it's still bein hashmashos. Which one is it? Amar Rabba, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. In the name of Shmuel, Kruch v'tani. It's actually one long statement. Eizu bein hashmashos. When does bein hashmashos start? Mishatishkacham. From when the sun dips beyond the horizon and the face of the east is red. Because mancha pnei mizrach madimin. As long as it's still red, that's the beginning of the shkia. And v'hichsev atachton, v'leichsev elyon, nami bein hashmashos. And even if the eastern horizon gets dark, if above you, directly above you, is still red, that's also still in the bein hashmashos time. Hichsev elyon v'hishvel atachton. However, if the sky above you is so dark that it's equal to the eastern horizon, now, Lila, that is dark. That's nighttime. So that's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yosef Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel in the name of Shmuel Hachi Ketanu Mishka Tishka Hachama Kos Mesha Pnei Mizrach Ma'adim. This is what he says. Misha Tishka Hachama, from when the sun dips beyond the horizon, as long as the eastern horizon is still red, Yom, that's still day. That isn't even bein hashmashos. That's what it means. So according to this opinion, and actually even after the sun is dipped beyond the horizon, as long as the horizon is still red, the eastern horizon is still red, that's still a part of the daytime. But if the lower horizon is dark and above you, directly above you, is still reddish, bein hashmashos. That's when bein hashmashos starts. However, if above you is now dark as the horizon, Lila, that's when it becomes night. So we have two opinions as to when the actual bein hashmashos starts. The first opinion says it starts as soon as the sun dips beyond the horizon, and it goes all the way until it's completely dark above you, equal to the horizon. The second opinion says no. As long as there's still reddish color on the eastern horizon, it's still day. It only becomes day when that darkens. That's when, it only becomes bein hashmashos. It only becomes twilight once that darkens, and it goes until the above you is dark as well. Vazul Tamayim, this is based on their opinions. The Itmer, as we've seen, Shir bein hashmashos bekama. How long is the time period of this twilight zone? Amar Rabba Amar Rabbi Yehuda Mashmuel Shlosha Chilkei Mil. It's 3 parts of a mil. Now, 3 parts of what? The Gemara says, "My gimel chilkei mil." What do you mean 3 parts? Ilay matlasa palgi. Do you mean 3 halves? Name a mil mechza. So why don't you just say 1.5 mil? Ella tilti. Do you mean 3/3? So just say name a mil. Just say a mil. Ella tlasa rivi. So must be 3 parts mean 3/4. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel. However, Rabbi Yosef says in the name of Shmuel, Shnei chilkei mil, it's 2 parts of a mil. What is that? My shnei chilkei mil. What do you mean? Ilay trei palgi. Do you mean 2 halves again? So just say a whole. Yeah, mila lema mil. Ve'ela trei rivi. So what are you going to say? It's 2/4. No, also not mila lema chatzi mil. So say half. Ella trei tilti. So must be mean 2/3 of a mil. So now we're on 35a. Lamed Ahei Amid Aleph. My benayu. So what's the difference between the 2 opinions? Ikebenayu palga de danka. Half of a danka, which is a 1/6. So half a 1/6, which is a 12th. That's the difference between 3/4 and 2/3 is a 12th of a mil. Is going to be the distinction between these 2 opinions. And as we're going to see now, the Rabbi Yosef and Rabbah, who say 2/3, 2 portions and 3 portions in regards to the length of the mil, disagree in regards to the size of a woven basket. The halacha is that a receptacle that is large enough that it can be its own space does not have the halacha of a vessel, and therefore, if it doesn't have if it has a din of its own thing, then there's no halacha of a prohibition of carrying it. The Amar Rabba Bar Chilta, Bas Trei Kuri Shara Little Tula. He says as soon as it is large enough that it has 2 kur, can hold 2 kur, that's large enough that it still has a halacha of a vessel, but it's considered that it's carryable. And regards to once it's large enough that it can contain 3 kur, it's not considered a vessel anymore. Now it's a stationary thing. He says no, even something that is large enough that it contains 3 kur, that is also going to still be a vessel. It has to contain 4 kur, and then it's no longer carryable. Amar Abaye, Abaye says, this question was asked Amar B'Shas Maisa, when it was a matter of a discussion of a practical matter of whether or not one can handle this or not. And he said, and I asked Rav Huna, asked Rabbah, and he wouldn't even allow me something that can contain 2 kur. Come on. The Tanana, we learned that Keveras Akash v'Keveras Akanim uboras svina l'chsandris, a straw-made wicker basket, and a reed-made wicker basket, and these bowls that they would make on boats, because the water was salty water, so they would have fresh water in these basins in the bottom of the boat. Even though that they have a bottom, and they can contain 40 seah, which is the size of a mikvah. So therefore, if it is that large, it should not be considered a vessel. Balach shehen kurayim biyavish, which is 2 kur in dry, because you can make a heaping amount. Tahorin, these are no longer considered a receptacle. They're not considered a vessel, and they are not susceptible to tuma, because they are not a vessel anymore. They are too large and cannot be carried. And the concept of something being susceptible to tuma is, like the Torah says, a sack, which is something that can be carried. But if it's large enough that you can no longer carry it, this is something that needs to be rolled or moved empty. But you cannot move it when it's full, then it's no longer a receptacle. But what we can learn also in regards to measurements is gudsha tilta, that a heaping amount is 1/3 more, because we see that it's 2 kur in dry measure and 40 seah in wet, which tells you that the dry measure can add 1/3. That he was looking when it was sunset, and he was looking to see whether it was nightfall yet. He was looking west at the western horizon instead of the eastern horizon. And we were saying, as we were saying the whole time up until now, the machlokas is whether the eastern horizon is still going to be red, or it's going to be completely dark, but it'll be somewhere at the eastern horizon when Bein Hashmashos comes, not the western horizon. And he was looking at the western horizon. But we said as long as there's a redness on the eastern horizon. You think it means the eastern horizon? No, that's not what it means. It's the horizon that shines onto the east. In the evening, all of the light on the eastern horizon comes from the west, where the sun is. And that's what it means. The shine of the east, meaning the west, what's shining onto the east needs to be red. And while it's red, that's going to be Bein Hashmashos. Some say that it wasn't Abaye who saw Rava, but rather was that Rava saw Abaye. And he said, no, it was the same answer. It doesn't mean the eastern horizon means the western horizon, which is shining other. And think of a window. So in your house, you could get a nice sun rays shining in onto a far wall, but the rays are not coming from that wall. It's coming from the outside of the window that's shining in from the sun on the other side. So the same thing over here. You can see light on the far wall, but it's actually coming from the western side where the sun is. Rabbi Nehemiah says actually it's a measure based on time, as long as it would take a person to travel a half a mil. Amar Rabbi Chanina, so Rabbi Chanina explained, if you want to know how long that measure actually is, when the sun is at the top of the mountain of Carmel, meaning it's coming down, and it's about to dip beyond the top of the Carmel mountain and going down on the western side. So just as the sun is about to dip beyond Mount Carmel, you would start leaving down to get down to the sea, to Tovel. V'yered v'yitvel b'yam, and it go down and Tovel in the sea. V'yala, and you have enough time to go up. Zeu shiur shalom Nehemiah. That's how long Rabbi Nehemiah was talking about. Once we're talking about making a measure from the Carmel, he says if you want to see the well, the rock that formed the well of Miriam, Yala l'Rosh HaKarmel, go to the head of the Carmel. Look at the, I assume it means the Kinneret. And you look at the sea, and you'll see in the sea like a colander, a rock that is shaped like a vessel that has holes in it. And that's the rock of Miriam. Rav said a halacha that a movable wellspring is going to be tahor, meaning it counts as a well that's a spring that's attached to the ground, and is not susceptible to tumah and can make tahara. And what is that? That's the wellspring of Miriam. That's the only spring we know of that is coming out of a rock that can move. Shmuel said that the time of Bein Hashmashos of Rabbi Yehuda, the Kahanim were allowed to go to the mikveh. So Laman, Ilaim Rabbi Yehuda, according to whom is that halacha said? When he said that at the time of twilight of Rabbi Yehuda, Kahanim could go to the mikveh. Are we talking about according to Rabbi Yehuda? That can't be. Because according to Rabbi Yehuda, it may be the next day already. The Kahanim can't go to the mikveh, and it should count for yesterday. Sveikahu, it's already a time of doubt. Ela bein hashmash is the Rabbi Yehuda or Rabbi Yossi. Rather, what he means to say is that according to Rabbi Yossi, who says that the bein hashmashos, that the twilight zone is actually just a moment, according to him, the Kahanim can still go to the mikveh in the time that it is already bein hashmashos of Rabbi Yehuda. Kahanim told Reb Shita. Well, that seems obvious because he says he doesn't have this whole long time window of twilight zone. It's just a moment. So of course I could still go to the mikveh because it's still the previous day. And one says, no, I may have thought I may have thought, even according to Rabbi Yossi, the time of the Bein Hashmashos of Rabbi Yossi, that twilight zone, that's even though that it's just a moment, but it's within the time of Rabbi Yehuda. And since we don't know exactly when it is, it's within the time of Rabbi Yehuda, so you can't go to the mikveh in the time of Rabbi Yehuda's Bein Hashmashos because you don't know when the transition to the next day is, even though it's only a momentary transition, but we can't identify when it is. To tell us that, therefore, Shmuel says no. The entire period that Rabbi Yehuda says is a doubt of whether it's the next day yet or not, according to Rabbi Yossi, is for sure the previous day. At the end of the time of Rabbi Yehuda, where he says it's for sure the next day, that's where Rabbi Yossi says the instantaneous bein hashmashos is. Amar Rabba Bar Bachana, Rabbi Yochanan, halacha Rabbi Yehuda in Shabbos, halacha Rabbi Yisrael in Teruma. So we say the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda in regards to Shabbos. That as soon as the sun dips beyond the horizon, as soon as bein hashmashos starts, you have to be strict. Maybe it's already Shabbos. You can't do malacha. So we have to be strict for Shabbos to say that as soon as Rav Yehuda's bein hashmashos begins, you have to be strict. And Matzah Shabbos, you also have to be strict the other way and say, until we know Rav Yehuda's bein hashmashos is complete, or Rav Yossi's bein hashmashos is complete, we're not going to end Shabbos. So that's why we have approximately 25 hours of Shabbos, because you start at the beginning of bein hashmashos and you end at nightfall. So you start at sunset and end at nightfall, because we have this twilight zone in between that we're strict on both ends of Shabbos. Halacha Rabbi Yisrael in Teruma, but in regards to Teruma, we're lenient like Rabbi Yossi. Well, we're not lenient. We say like Rabbi Yossi. So in regards to what? So Bishlam halacha Rabbi Yehuda in Shabbos l'chumra. So Rabbi Yossi, that makes sense. We're going to be strict on both ends of Shabbos. Avalin in Teruma mai. Regards to Teruma, what does it mean? Do we mean that going to the mikveh, that the kahanim can go to the mikveh in the time of Rabbi Yehuda, as according to Rabbi Yossi? Why? Sveikahi. It's still a moment of doubt. Maybe it's already the next day. So how can they go to the mikveh and it should count for the previous day? Ella, and we saw, and Rashi points out that we saw this according to Rabbi Yochanan, who we're saying this in the name of. Rabbi Yochanan says we have to be strict in regards to the kahanim. Right? Because he says that for Shabbos we have to be strict. So why are we not being strict for Teruma? Ella la'achilas Teruma. Rather, what it means in regards to eating the Teruma. That the Kohanim cannot eat the Teruma after they've gone to the mikveh. They cannot eat Teruma until the next day, which we say the halacha is, and Torah says, they go to the mikveh and they can eat kachim the next day. They have to wait until Rabbi Yossi's bein hashmashos is over. And we're now in 35b, Lamed Hey Amud Beis. Ad shalom bein hashmashos Rabbi Yossi, until Rabbi Yossi's bein hashmashos is complete. Amar Rabbi Mishmuel, Kochad Echad Yesh Yom. If there's only one star that you can see in the sky, it's still day. Shnayim bein hashmashos. Well, you can see two. Now it's in twilight zone. Shlosha. If you can see 3 stars, Laila, that's when it's night. Amar Rabbi Yosef, and Rabbi Yosef said, "Look, Chavim Gadol." We're not talking about large stars, which can be seen already very early into the twilight zone. Hanirim b'yom. They can even be seen by day. But look, Chavim Ketanim she'einirim ela b'layla, and not the tiny stars that can only be seen when it's really dark out. Ela beinanim, we're talking about mid-sized stars. Amar Rav Yosef bar Zvida, ha'isam malacha b'shnei bein hashmashos chayav. Somebody who did a Shabbos transgression, Friday night and Motzei Shabbos in the twilight zone, either way has to bring a chatas. Because either Friday night or Motzei Shabbos, he transgressed. Manavshach. Amalei Rava l'shame, atun d'leikim l'chu b'shiur d'Rabbanan. You who don't really know the measure and don't know how to calculate when the twilight zone is, when Motzei Shabbos is, and Shabbos begins. Ad shimsha areish dikla, when the sun is still at the head of the palms. So they used to be there. The palm trees were not in the city itself. The city just had houses. Around the cities and the villages, they would have open area which had trees. And so when you're looking westward to the sun, and the sun is at the top of the trees, it hasn't yet gone below the trees, which is the next step is below the horizon. At Lushraga, that's when you should light your candles for Shabbos. And b'yom ha'mu'unan, on a cloudy day, so what are you going to do then when you don't see the sun? So he says, here's what you do. But Masa, if you're in the city, Chazi b'tar nagola, look at the chickens and the hens when they're standing on top of something, on the top of the fence or on top of a pole or something. But Dabra, if you're out in the field, Urvi, see when the ravens are sitting on top of something, perched on some ledge. Inami or Adani, there's a plant that in the morning it's leaning towards the sun in the east, and in the evening it's leaning towards the sun in the west. And when you see it leaning towards the west, you know that the sun is about to set and you need to accept Shabbos. Hashakach. Tomorrow morning at 7:15, we will